Thanksgiving Day and the Bears and Lions going at it. Two teams definitely going in different directions right now. Let's cross it over.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, everybody, let's do this. We got Thanksgiving Day football coming up right here. Locked On Lions, Matt Derry. Locked On Bears, Lauren Cox. It's the Bears and the Lions once again. It seems like, Lauren, these two teams play every year on Thanksgiving. Detroit has won 9 in a row. The Bears have dropped 5 straight. And we are brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. As always, PrizePicks.com. Go there. Go to PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the code, all lowercase, LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Lauren Cox, great to see you, my friend. Bears played better last week, right? Where are the storylines here for Chicago as they limp into Detroit?
Yeah, is this the best team ever on a 5-game losing streak right now? Many people are saying. I mean, that's the story of this team, though, right? Like, they find ways to lose. They don't find ways to win. They find ways to lose, whether it's a Hail Mary at the end against the Commanders or a blocked field goal at the end against the Packers or really stinking it up in overtime against the Vikings. Like, they just don't know how to win. And I think for Bears fans, you've been able to find this silver lining of like, hey, last 2 games, Caleb Williams and the offense playing a lot better. So they're not losing because of their quarterback. They're losing more because of their head coach, who the fan base wants to fire anyway. So if you got to lose games, this is probably the best way to lose those games where you still have confidence in your future and also are further cementing the outcome for your coaching staff as well.
Let me ask you this. It just, that Tyreek Stevenson play, and the Hail Mary and the antics beforehand and all of that took place. Is that just spiraled and snowballed this thing, that instance, or is that overrated? They've just had some bad luck after that.
I think it has spiraled, but it hasn't just been the Tyreek Stevenson. Like, yes, the ending of that Commanders game has spiraled things, but it's bigger than just Stevenson chirping at the crowd after the ball has been snapped and not paying attention to the play. Like, it's the play before the Hail Mary where the Bears didn't really defend the sideline at all and defended the Hail Marys and gave the Commanders a free 20 yards or whatever it was to set up an easier Hail Mary. And after the game, you had players actively like putting their name on quote saying, yeah, we disagree with how the coaching staff handled that. And that's been sort of a theme this season of players not being afraid to say, yeah, we want it done differently. And we don't like the way they decided to run X, Y, or Z, and we need to meet as a team and figure out a way to do this better because the coaching staff just isn't doing things the way we want to. So it's not just Stevenson as the only scapegoat there. It's really a team-wide issue with the coaching staff, and Stevenson's obviously been kind of the easy scapegoat there, but he hasn't been playing that well even when he has been on the field. So there's bigger fish to fry here than just one cornerback.
10-win Lions, 4-win Bears coming up here on Thanksgiving tomorrow. Locked On Lions, Locked On Bears, Thursday crossover on a Wednesday edition. All right, tell me about, Shane Waldron gets fired. Offense seems to be better, but what's been the story and how come it hasn't translated into any W's?
Yeah, the offense has so much more like structure and rhythm to it. It's really been a major breath of fresh air. Like, to give you an example here, friend of the show, Matt Waldman from Matt Waldman's Rookie Scouting Portfolio reported that like he's talked to people around the Bears organization that under Shane Waldron, they weren't always designating how many steps Caleb Williams should be taking on his drop back passes. They haven't said, it wasn't like this is a 5-step play or this is a 3-step play. It's sort of a however many steps you need, go back there and do it. Like, there just wasn't always structure marrying the footwork to the passing concept. And so I think Caleb has benefited from a lot more direct coaching and a lot more direction. I think initially they kind of just gave him the full keys to the car and said, run the offense. You're a number 1 overall pick quarterback. It's all you, go for it. And maybe that was a little bit too much. And now I think they found a lot more of a guiding pathway for Caleb to step up and make plays in the pocket and be more confident in what the play calling is because he's got more structure to lean on. And I think the last 2 games, he's made some incredible plays. He's generally taken pretty good care of the football. He still misses some throws here and there. He's not a perfect QB, but it's gotten to the point where, especially this last week against the Vikings, the defense was a bigger concern in that game than the offense. And we haven't really been able to say that in the last 2 or 3 years.
Tell me about DeAndre Swift, former Lion. There are games that I watch the Bears and I go, man, he is running through people and the speed. How big of an addition has he been and how big of a role will he play tomorrow?
Yeah, it feels like it's been hit and miss sometimes with DeAndre Swift, where certainly was a really slow start to the season, the first handful of games. He looked like a major free agent disappointment and, dare I say, bust for the Bears. And then kind of randomly, he just turned it on. He figured it out. He got more aggressive. He was super indecisive the first few weeks, trying to figure out, waiting for the right hole or whatever. He just wasn't attacking downhill as an explosive, decisive runner. He just was always waiting for something to come to him, and it wasn't there. And he wouldn't just take the yards the defense was giving him. But he seemed to flip a switch at some point in that process and really broke out and had this big stretch of games where he looked like everything the Bears wanted him to be. And now things are slowing down a little bit again here too. And some of it's been offensive line injuries and not having a consistent group up front. They haven't been run blocking particularly well. Some of it has been getting away from the running game a little bit in games where they're just losing and not able to stick with him. But generally, I think we've kind of come back down somewhere in the middle between bust and stud. And he's been good. He's been fine, but it hasn't been like, I don't think it's been everything you had hoped it would be, but it hasn't been a massive disappointment at this point either. He's doing all right.
O-line has been an issue for years. Man, I never think it can get as bad as it gets, and then it gets bad. It seemed like Caleb had a little bit more time against the Vikings, or how's that? I know they've done a lot of shuffling. I know they've gotten rid of some guys. Where is it right now?
Yeah, that was maybe the most, I don't say the most impressive, because I think Caleb was still the most impressive part against the Vikings, but I think we all went into that Vikings game afraid that Brian Flores is going to blitz the crap out of this Bears offensive line, and they're going to have no way of picking it up. And that's what happened against the Commanders in that game, and the Cardinals did it afterwards, and the Patriots did too. They seemed to figure out, hey, if you blitz this Bears offensive line a bunch, they can't pass it off properly, they can't communicate it, they can't get it picked up. But you change offensive coordinators, and all of a sudden, they communicate a lot better up front, and they have more guys in the block, and they just seem to have answers for the pass rush up front, and that made a big difference in that game against the Vikings. And I think, at least in the passing game, I have a lot more confidence in this Bears offensive line now than I did 3 weeks ago. It's helped that they've gotten a little bit healthier, so they've got, all 5 of their intended starters at this point of the process are out there. There's not a major injury holding them back from a lineup change there. It's still not a great group overall, but they seem to be settling in a little bit. And it's just sort of fingers crossed they can get through another week without any injuries up there, and they're serviceable at this point.
What's the biggest storyline on the defense right now for the Bears?
The defense is slowly falling apart. Sounds dramatic, but there's a lot of cracks in this foundation right now, and they need to find a way to kind of band together, buckle up a little bit, and just cut out some of the easy mistakes here, because they're getting absolutely gashed in the running game. And it's hard to just pin it on like, hey, this one guy is getting blocked, or they're missing tackles, or X, Y, or Z. They just haven't been able to fit up runs correctly. I think some of it is missing some guys at the defensive tackle spot that have been injured. The nose tackle, Andrew Billings, was a great revelation for them. And some of it's just guys overplaying their gaps, the linebacker spots, and also playing some pretty good offensive lines. The last couple of weeks haven't made it any easier for them, but I'm very concerned about how the Lions are going to be able to gash them with Montgomery and Gibbs. And then that makes Jared Goff's life that much easier behind it. And they've been pretty weak in the secondary at the cornerback spot that's not Jalen Johnson, and they've been injured at the safety spot that's not Kevin Byard. So you may have a third string safety and a rotation opposite Jalen Johnson that leaves some vulnerability on the back end, in addition to the running game struggles up front.
Should I put a bet on FanDuel on the Lions blocking a field goal this week?
You would think it's a fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, shame on you. But somehow, some way, they've had it happen in back-to-back weeks in the exact same spot in the blocking up front. So the Bears haven't seemed to come up with an answer to solve that. So I don't know that I would put my money on it per se, but it's something that I'm definitely concerned about. And I would say more likely in this game than any other the Lions have played in this season.
Lauren Cox, Locked on Bears. Matt Derry, Locked on Lions. We'll get the Lions storylines. Lauren will grill me on some questions. We'll do that coming up next. It's a Thursday crossover brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. Locked on Lions, Locked on Bears on a Thursday, or on a Wednesday, I should say. Get ready for the Thursday Thanksgiving Day game. We're brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL season, of course, with America's #1 sportsbook. It is FanDuel. 3 games on Thanksgiving Day, not just Lions and Bears. You want to put some money down on the games? Giants and Cowboys, Dolphins and Packers. You can do that at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, You check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Matt and Lauren with you, Locked On Lions, Locked On Bears. We're doing the crossover on a Wednesday, getting you ready for the Thursday Thanksgiving Day game. And Lauren, what do you got for me? I mean, it's very simple with the Lions. Storyline has been 9 straight wins. People cannot believe this. This is like a fantasy world here in Detroit. We're America's team. Everybody thinks we're going to the Super Bowl. I mean, it's crazy. Yet, big storyline number one, I guess, is injuries. Taylor Decker likely not going to play in this game. Carlton Davis likely not going to play in this game. And to me, the Bears pass rush going up against backup left tackle Dan Skipper could get interesting on Thursday.
Yeah, I definitely see that being one of the big factors here, is this because Bears pass rush disappeared a little bit last week against the Minnesota Vikings. But I'm curious if we go bigger picture in this game. 10-1 Lions, 4-7 Bears. I mean, the Bears I think are over a 10-point underdog on FanDuel Sportsbook right now. No one nationally, I think, is expecting the Bears to stand a chance in this game. And yet I think there are some Bears fans looking around saying, last year when these two teams played, the Bears beat them in the second game and sure played them tough in the first game. Maybe this is just a matchup that the Bears, for whatever reason, have some space in. Did you sense any of that doubt from Lions fans or even around the Lions team of like, hey, wait a minute, we need to take this Bears team a little bit more seriously than their record might suggest because of last year? Or is it, hey, new year, new Lions team, we're way better than we were last year?
I honestly think the Lions want this game badly. I think the Lions know and have used last season for motivation on other factors. Showing Dan Campbell, showing his team the kneel down of Brock Purdy in the NFC Championship game a couple of times and saying, we're not going to let this happen again against the 49ers. Referencing the game in Dallas last year where they got robbed at the end of the year. They go into Dallas, they leave no doubt, and they smoke the Cowboys, 49-6 or whatever it was, 47-6, or 47-9, whatever it was a blowout. Now with the Bears, I think they're like, hey, I'm assuming Dan Campbell has told this team they all played us not once but twice last year. Justin Fields doesn't fumble that football and botch that fourth quarter at Ford Field a year ago. You're right. The Bears probably should have swept the Lions last year because they dominated the game at, off of Lakeshore. So I really believe that the Lions are taking this game seriously. I think the biggest issue again is the injuries. And the fact that Lion fans are scared that Kindle Vildor will be on the field a lot because he was absolutely abysmal at cornerback this past Sunday in Indy. Got away with it a few times because of some poor throws and some drops. But I expect Terry Arnold to be back, and I expect Emmanuel Mosley to play more as an outside corner with the injury to Carlton Davis.
I imagine it's hard for Lions fans to surmise this, but like there was a time back when Kindle Vildor came into the Chicago Bears back in I think 2020 when like he was a promising young player that was like a pleasant surprise when he gets on the field as what I think it was a late fifth round pick back in that draft, and eventually he was in the starting lineup a little bit. It was like, oh, the Bears may have found a little something in this Kindle Vildor guy. When your expectations are super super low, he was a nice little pleasant surprise. And now, what has it been 4 or 5 years later? You don't want to have to put him out there in a starting lineup position in a game like this, and certainly we saw it in the playoffs last year. But I appreciate you giving us some kind of Lions storyline there because it's hard for us to feel bad for you at 10-1. You have one backup corner and one backup offensive tackle. It must be so tough over there right now.
I know. Well, look, the Lions have luckily, knock on wood, stayed pretty healthy throughout the year. But think about this. The defense lost Marcus Davenport, Derek Barnes, John Kaminsky, Aiden Hutchinson. Now they're without Alex Anzalone, and they've continued to shine. Defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn has done a fantastic job. He is going to be a head coach someplace next year. Heck, he may interview in Chicago. Who knows? But maybe he and Ben Johnson, they can go together after this Eberflus thing comes to an end, which I think it will. And I know you talk about every day. Aaron Glenn's done a tremendous job because you look at that defense and say, man, that's a lot of starters that you've lost. That's a lot of edge rushers that you've lost. And yet they found a way to win each and every week. I mean, the defense has allowed 11 second half points total in the last 5 games. And all of those came against Green Bay in one game. So second halves, they've shored things up, and they're on a string right now. They just are playing really, really well. They're communicating. Young linebacker Jack Campbell stepping up. Darius Smith has been a nice pickup. And they just their two safeties are as good as any safeties in the league right now.
Yeah, those guys definitely scare me on the back end there. I want to touch briefly on the other injury, Taylor Decker at left tackle. You mentioned Dan Skipper likely in the lineup there. Is there a real concern there about the Lions offensive line at all when the other four guys are pretty darn solid? Like, can they pretty well absorb? Yeah, obviously you don't want to be missing Taylor Decker, but you can get by with one down man there and feel like Goff and Swift or Goff and Gibbs and Montgomery, if he plays, are good to go still.
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, I mean, Montez Sweat is very, very good. The Bears have been able to get to Jared Goff the last couple of years. And so, yeah, you want all five of your offensive linemen intact and playing. Taylor Decker injured his knee the other day and tried to give it a go in the second half against the Colts. Sounds like he's not going to go. Skipper's fine. He's a nice backup piece, very popular in the locker room. He'll do okay. I just, it's always, you always feel better when you've got all your guys. And this offensive line has just been dominant. Penei Sewell is going to destroy whoever's in front of him. He's that good. And Frank Ragnow is as good a center as there is in the league. And you mentioned Montgomery, the former Bear, who Lion fans thank the Bears for letting him walk because he's already gotten a contract extension. He just bowls you over. That's how the Lions start games. They hand the ball to Montgomery. He's a bowling ball, get you 4 or 5 yards of carry. And then in the second series, here comes Jahmyr Gibbs, who just is as fast as any running back in the league. And it's a special duo, and they've been awesome so far this year.
I want to touch on Jared Goff real quick. It feels like we have to at least talk quarterback at some point in here. He was in the MVP conversation for a while there, then has the 5 interception game against the Texans, bounced back against the Jaguars just fine. But like, what happened there? Is there a specific rhyme or reason, or is it just, hey, sometimes guys have a bad game and is everything considered fine now? Or is there still any lingering sort of like back your mind doubt of like, could that kind of thing happen again in the wrong situation?
No, I think Jared Goff's fine. I think he's still in that discussion. Had a really big game after that. Like you mentioned last week, very, very solid against the Colts. They really didn't need him to make a lot of big throws. He had a bad day. And I will say this, DeMeco Ryans and that Colts coach, that Texans coaching staff really schemed it up well. Brought the safety Jalen Petrie up a lot, showed some different blitzes. The offensive line had a really bad first half. I mean, Penei Sewell getting beat, Taylor Decker getting beat. Was unlike those guys. It was just a bad first half. One of those interceptions, of course, was a Hail Mary. So, people are talking about 5, but one was just kind of sort of an end of the half Hail Mary. And Goff's responded the last couple of weeks. And, he could set a record if his passer rating's over 140 or 150. It'll be the most 140 passer rating games in a season by any quarterback ever. Same with 150. So he's had a tremendous year. Yes, some of it is scheme and Ben Johnson and the O-line and the weapons, but he's just so damn accurate and plays really, really well on that carpet inside Ford Field.
Yeah, the Bears did a decent job scheming against him last year, but it felt like this year Matt Eberflus has been, especially the last couple of games, a little bit more stale and a little less creative up front in trying to throw different things at different quarterbacks. I think that's going to be one of our keys to victory here moving forward, is just how this Bears defense kind of responds and tries to throw some different things at the Lions instead of sitting back in a little bit more of a bland, rush 4 and drop back into soft zone coverage defense that seemed to really hurt them last week against the Vikings. They're going to need to adjust a few things on that side of the ball.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any question about it. The Lions just, they feel so good when they're just in rhythm offensively. And like we said, I mean, so many different weapons. Sam Laporta hasn't even had that really great of a year, and he's as good a tight end as there is in the NFC. St. Brown, who we haven't even mentioned yet, just does his thing. Every time he's targeted, he catches the football. I mean, last week, 7 targets, 6 catches. Really, every game you look up, you go 8 targets, 8 catches, 7 catches, 7 targets. It's rare when he doesn't catch the football or the ball is not delivered to him right away and on target. So he's been great. And like we said, I mean, I think the Lions look up and say, we haven't won a Thanksgiving Day game now in the last 7 years. I think they want to end that streak tomorrow.
And I don't think they're going to get a lot of Bears fans confident that, hey, you know, what this team needs, a short week to get ready for an opponent. That's going to go far for this Bears team. Yeah, they absolutely love that. You have more Bears fans hoping for a coaching change after this game, but I don't expect the Lions to be killer this week. I think the Bears are going to keep holding on.
Oh my goodness gracious. All right, when we come back, let's get some keys to this game. How do the Bears get a win? Same with the Lions. It's the Thursday crossover on a Wednesday. Locked On Lions, Locked On Bears. And our program today brought to you by our friends at Gametime, best ticket app out there. Gametime's got that new feature. When you get the app, check it out. It's called Gametime Picks. It makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Heard from a lot of Lion fans last weekend. Use the Gametime app, zoom down to Indianapolis, made that 4.5 hour drive, and they were there, and they were loud for Lions and Colts. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff, show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Said it again. Super deals, the view from your seat before you buy. You want tickets to Thanksgiving Day tomorrow. There are tickets there for Lions and Bears. And don't forget, next Thursday, Lions and Packers, same thing. All in pricing. Toggle this feature so the total's up front. Shows you the total up front with no surprise fee when you check out. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It is Gametime. All right, Lauren Cox, Locked On Bears. Let's talk about some keys. How do the Bears win this football game on Thanksgiving Day and spring the upset?
Yeah, it feels to me like they don't have to reinvent the wheel here or come up with some special game plan for the Detroit Lions that like this matchup requires some brand new scheme here. Like they just have to kind of get back to the things that they know have worked for them, right? Like we've seen this Bears defense play at a really high level. And the last couple of weeks, we've seen the offense play at a high level, or at least a good enough level here. And so if you can just do both of those things at the same time, then you can win football games. That's been the problem, is doing them both. So I think, offensively, it's about having those answers for Caleb Williams. And if the Lions are going to blitz a little bit because they've been aggressive at times this year, give them quick options to get rid of the ball, take the checkdowns when they're there. But then sometimes you need to block them up and load up for a shot play and let Caleb be that playmaker. He made some really, really difficult throws last week in the pocket and on the run that kept this offense in the game and made an 11-point comeback in the final 2 minutes. Like he can do it if you give him the opportunity to do so. And then defensively, they got to be able to get after Jared Goff a little bit and make him uncomfortable, because too often with Sam Darnold last week, he was able to just sit in the pocket. And if you give Goff all kinds of time in that pocket, he's just going to pick you apart up and down the field. So the Bears, they need to get more creative up front and show some different pressures. It doesn't mean you have to blitz like a Brian Flores or anything, but some simulated pressures, and just make sure that it doesn't just look like four-man rush every single time, where the offensive line knows where everyone's coming from, and it's not a big surprise how the defense is going to get after you there. But if they just sit too kind of plain, soft, boring, vanilla, I don't like my odds against this offense with all those weapons, trying to just beat them, one-on-one with just our 7 guys back in coverage versus your 5 receivers. I don't think that goes well for 4 quarters.
No, I think you're spot on with everything you're saying, certainly with the Bears. And like you said, I mean, down 11 with a minute and a half to go last week, getting a tie game and getting that extra, the onside kick. It was impressive. And it was like, all right, Bears won the toss in overtime, but having a punt, then it's like, that looked like a very winnable game for the Bears, at least at the end. So they've got a little momentum coming in. I'll say this for the Lions. They've got to get pressure on Caleb Williams. The pass rush without Aiden Hutchinson has not been great. Best guy really that's been getting to the quarterback has been Aleem McNeil from the interior. He has been an absolute monster and is a tremendous football player. And if the Bears O-line woes continue, especially on the interior, McNeil is going to eat. He'll have a big game. But he's got to get some pressure from the edges too, Darius Smith and certainly Josh Pascal. If Caleb's got some time to throw, we mentioned the injuries in the Lions secondary with Carlton Davis likely out. That could play a role in this game. And certainly the Bears have the receivers to make some noise. And again, it's a short week. I mean, that's another thing. It's like the Lions have got to turn around and play right away. Bears, I know, were devastated with that loss this past week. Lions played well in Indy, but a short week is always difficult and always tricky. And this team's won 9 in a row. Dan Campbell and his staff have done such a great job that they're they'll be prepared, but you just never know. This is a complete wild card game. And like I said before, I mean, the Lions haven't won this game in 7 years, and a bunch of those losses seems like they have come to the Bears, including a couple of years ago. Other quick key, like I mentioned before, is blocking Jared Goff's blind side. Skipper instead of Decker. Got to keep Goff clean. Bears got some decent guys on the edge there that know how to rush the passer. So I would keep an eye on that if I'm Lions fans, because you always want your O-line to be completely healthy, and not having Taylor Decker will hurt. Lions won without him in Houston, but Houston didn't have Will Anderson in that game. So we'll see about that. Score prediction. You want to do this, Lauren? It's never fun. It's a short week, but I'll put you on the spot anyway.
Yeah. The Bears have generally done well on Thursday night games. I mean, as well as you could expect under Matt Eberflus. Like, if you lower the bar there, like, well, for their standards on Thursday games. But I also get the feeling like this Bears team, it wouldn't surprise me if this is the week that it kind of gives out and they roll over a little bit and just are deflated early, and never really super engaged in this game. You could just kind of hear it in Matt Eberflus's press conferences on the short week. Like, he sounds like a guy who knows he's being fired. And after back-to-back division games where you get your hopes up like you're about to win both of these games and you lose it again, like, it's sort of the boy who cried wolf. It's like, all right, guys, we're going to win this game. And do you really believe it this week after, you get yourself up for the division game and then fall flat twice in a row? Now you have to do it for a third straight division game to get yourself up for. I worry that this is going to be a game where the Bears just get absolutely steamrolled and it's pretty messy and embarrassing, but maybe that means they're going to somehow pull up the crazy upset in response. So I know I still think the Bears are going to lose. I think they'll get some things going on offense, but I'm worried about this defense quite a bit. I'm going to say, I'll say 31-21 Lions. And that'd be 3 touchdowns for the Bears. I don't know if they're going to get 3 even. 31-20. We'll make it 31-20.
Man, you were thinking what I was thinking. I'd say 37-20. I think the Lions offense last week scored 24, but weren't on the field a ton in the first half because the Colts held the football and did a nice job. But I just think that the Lions offense is too much for the Bears, and I'll go 37-20. I'd still be surprised if the McCaskies actually do this and fire a coach mid-season or in season, but maybe, like you said, with back-to-back division games and a 6th loss in a row, maybe they pull the trigger. Do you think what percentage chance do you put on that?
1 to 5%. I mean, I really think they've never fired a coach mid-season ever in the franchise's 100+ year history. And there have been some pretty bad seasons where it would justify firing. And I don't know that this loss against the Lions is all of a sudden rises above the level of all the other previously bad coaches and bad seasons where they could have fired a coach mid-season. I think we've seen Bears coaches survive worse than an embarrassing loss to the Lions on Thanksgiving. But then, they'll get the Vikings again in 2 weeks and the Lions again in 3 weeks and finish the season in Green Bay. So there's plenty of embarrassment still to come in Chicago.
Well, Lauren, happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to our viewers and listeners. We will talk to you again down the road. Lauren Cox, Locked On Bears. Matt Derry, Locked On Lions. Thursday crossover on a Wednesday, brought to you by PrizePicks.